Hello and welcome back. So today we are going to be finally going back together with all the 6-speed stuff. So now that the oil pan is sealed, the rear main is done, we can go ahead and bolt on the flywheel and the clutch assembly and the bell housing. So that's mainly what we're going to work on today. Try to get that all on and torque down, get the bell housing on. So once that's done, we can go on to like the next step, the slave, the master, and then put the trans in. So we're going to go ahead right now and get started on that. All right, so I have all my new parts laid out here. So this is the Fidenza flywheel for the 84 and 85 Corvette. It comes with mounting hardware and some thread locker. There's that. And then this is the clutch assembly. This comes with the pilot bushing, installation tool, or clutch alignment tool, I should say. And then this is a little bit of grease that you're gonna put on the splines and on the inside of your pilot bushing. So this also has a piece that goes in here that's kind of like a throwout bearing that attaches to the clutch, and then there'll actually be the throwout bearing that goes to the clutch fork assembly that's inside the bell housing here. And then this is the plate or shield that goes in between the bell housing and the transmission. Okay, so you want to make sure you clean inside here, really go with some brake cleaner, make sure there's no debris or anything. And then we're going to take the pilot bushing like this and just set it up in here and make sure it's kind of squared off and set in there so it's not crooked at all. And I found a socket that's almost the perfect diameter for this because it kind of sits in the crank there. I'm going to use this just so I have a straight shot right into the back of the crank with it, and then just gently tap it in. Okay, now that I have it installed all the way, I'm going to take some of this spline lubrication that they gave you. I'm going to coat the inside of this really good just so I don't forget. Even though I am going to coat the input shaft of the trans, just want to make sure this is properly greased up. Now I'm going to put the flywheel up here. Now if you notice all the bolt pattern on the crank, you want to just line that up with this extra hole here the same way. I also put a very fine coat of anti-seize around here on the flywheel. Okay, now I'm going to start installing the bolts. Now I'm going to use the thread locker that they give you. All right, now I'm going to just tighten these down by hand in a star pattern. Okay, now that I have them all snug, I'm going to torque these all down to 74 foot-pounds. So I have a breaker bar on the front of the crankshaft on the crank bolt itself holding it in place, and I'm going to do 3 steps. I'm going to do 1 step of 20, then 50, and then 74 for my final pass in the same star pattern. Okay, so now I'm going to install this into the pressure plate here. So if you look at this piece here, it's got 3 tabs sticking up, and then inside here also has 3 tabs. So this is going to go from the inside like this, that, and then there is going to be this retaining clip that goes around here like this. Like that. All right, so one thing that's like not included with the clutch kit or the flywheel or anything is the bolts to mount the pressure plate to the flywheel and the bolts to mount the bell housing to the block. So this is what I went with. So for the pressure plate to the flywheel, I went with 3/8 by 16 inch and 3/4 inch long grade 8 steel bolts, which looks like this and gives you enough length to be deep into the flywheel, enough gripping area there with that bolt. So that's what I went with there. And for the bell housing to the engine block itself, I went with 3/8 by 16 inch and a half inch long bolts. So that looks like this. So enough, it's about a ½ inch that'll grip into the block, which is more than enough. It's about the same length as what came out of the car, but for this bell housing. And the other thing that we needed to mount the trans to the bell housing, now these are metric bolts, the ZF bell housing. It's 12 millimeter by 1.75 and 40 millimeters long. So these look like this, and these thread and hold the trans to the bell housing. So when I bought the trans, it had some mismatched bolts, so I ended up getting these so they all match. So you're going to need a total of 5 to hold the trans to the bell housing, 6 to hold the bell housing to the block, and then 6 for the pressure plate to the flywheel. All right, so I'm getting ready to put this in the car. I just want to bring a couple little points up if someone's never done this before. So the friction disc here is actually marked gearbox side, so that goes actually to the transmission. Essentially, it will look like this. That part goes into the flywheel, that longer piece that's sticking out there. And then it goes like this, then the pressure plate like that, and then we're going to put the clutch alignment tool in here like that as we slowly bolt this to the flywheel like that, also in a star pattern as we tighten that down as well. So we're going to go ahead and install this into the car like this and then start tightening it down. So now's a good time to clean off this surface. So just a little brake cleaner and a rag and just make sure everything's off of it. All right, now I'm going to get it up in here like this. Now I put a little bit of thread locker on each one of these bolts. All right, now I have all the bolts installed, and you want to make sure that the alignment tool's pushed all the way into the pilot bearing there, so the disc is aligned against the flywheel there, like that, and then just slowly work your way around to snug this up. All right, once you have them all tightened down and the pressure plate is against the flywheel here, we're going to torque all these bolts in a star pattern as well to 30 foot-pounds. All right, so I have the bell housing here. So there are a couple areas where I'm going to grease up. Now you're going to put just a light coating of grease on these points. You don't want to put a lot because you don't want it spraying everywhere if it's coated up with grease, getting it on the actual clutch. So I'm going to use just a small brush here, and I'm going to go right on the face of the clutch fork here where the bearing will sit. Just a little bit, there's a very light coating. Almost next to nothing on there. And then right on the ball where the fork pivots on, I'm going to put it right around there, any contact point, just a light coat. And now I'll do the same on the back side. I'm actually going to put some on the fork where the slave cylinder will hit, right in there, and then right on these areas too. You can actually see, because this is a used fork, you can actually see the wear areas through time where the throwout bearing was sitting on. Okay, so one thing I want to clarify, which I'm just kind of learning now, is that the throwout bearing that I thought you needed 2 of, which I thought was really weird anyway, I just got a parts list originally and I ordered everything. So you do not use this other extra throwout bearing at all. You're gonna use the one that came with the clutch kit in there, and then I'll show you how the clutch fork actually hooks up to this. So what happens is, as you're bolting this onto the car, this piece is on the clutch like this and goes in through the back, and your clutch fork actually pulls on this instead of the old style was pushing against the clutch. So this actually pulls here. So as we're gonna put the bell housing on, we have to make sure that the clutch fork, we move this forward and sneak it on to the throwout bearing that's already on the clutch that's in the car right now. So this will go in here like that. So we're gonna have to put the bell housing in, fish the fork around the throwout bearing on the clutch, and then align it and put it on. All right, now I'm gonna start putting this up here and trying to align it with the throwout bearing first and then get it in place. All right, so that is what that'll look like in there. As you can see how it's sitting on those tabs like that. All right, so I put a little thread locker on each one of these bolts, and I'm gonna run them all in now. All right, now that I have all the bolts in and they're kind of tightened down, I'm gonna torque them all to 37 foot-pounds, and I'm gonna go in a star pattern too. All right, so that's a wrap for today's video. So that'll do it for the clutch setup there. I did learn that one little thing that you do not need that extra throwout bearing, which I was saying I thought was a little bizarre anyway. Oddly enough, when I bought that whole swap kit, it had one in the clutch fork. So I'm not really sure what was going on there. I just assumed it was part of that. I'm not familiar with the ZF6 that well, but we did learn that. So if you're gonna do this, you only need the throwout bearing that comes with the clutch kit. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. See you next week.